Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back with you for another episode of our program. This is the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. My name is Mac Worley III, and this is On the Move. This show today is really quite serious. We're talking about several very serious subjects, and I hope that I can convey how important this is, that we're all paying attention to these topics. So what am I talking about? Specifically, we're talking about our feature topics today. I want to talk about some of the history behind the phrase, "do it for the children." I want to talk about how this phrase has been used in the past and why we should be, aware of this history. Why we should be a little skeptical when people say, "do it for the children." Obviously, I'm also going to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. I believe the Black Lives Matter movement is the new KKK. It is the newest rendition of hate in our country, and it's all being brought up as a form of equality. Oh yeah, we're talking about equality. We're talking about problems that are specific to black Americans. However, they're doing it by calling for hate and calling for violent actions against whites and against our police officers. And I think this needs to be addressed, obviously, the hypocrisy between how this is being covered in the media, and we're going to get to that. Also, I want to get to the left's fundamental misunderstanding about centralization of power. What are they thinking? What is their thought process? Let's actually understand where they're coming from, and then let's show all of the gaping holes that go along with this philosophy. In addition, I want to actually ask a philosophical question, really, and this is a moral question. Do we have an obligation to others? And by obligation, I mean that you have to do for others. You have to. Through force of taxes, governmental force. Do we have an obligation to others? A responsibility is one thing, but an obligation is another. And also, since we're kind of going down this leftist mindset, let's figure out what the left is actually trying to say with this Iran deal. What is their rationale for passing the Iran deal? What is the rationale for support for this? So I'm going to give you what I've been able to surmise from what the left has been saying. Again, I subscribe to all of their newsletters so I can understand their point of view. And, in some cases, they may be right. In this one, I disagree wholeheartedly, and I'm going to get to that. We also have a lot of other articles in the news. If we have time in today's show, I want to get to this Kentucky clerk that refused to sign a marriage license, and she's now being held in jail for contempt of court. Anyway, as usual, you guys are welcome to join today's conversation. Feel free to do so. The number to today's telephone show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Don't forget to check us out at our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll start back in on the first featured topic. And anyway, you guys aren't going to want to miss this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. So, some of this history behind the phrase, do it for the children. I want to get into this. I want to actually discuss this in some detail here about, what is being done, first of all, with this phrase. What are they trying to do right now? That's the most important thing that we should cut to. Right now, they're using the phrase, do it for the children, to get rid of gun rights, to get rid of rights that are, first of all, constitutionally protected, and they're rights that these children will possess one day when they are old enough. So getting rid of the Second Amendment is, first of all, directly going after the children's rights as well. They're actually usurping the rights of children by saying, do it for these children. So, first of all, that's a big glaring hole. And second of all, as I've previously mentioned so many episodes in the past, I've beaten this drum over and over and over again. When they use children or victims to give a reason why they should restrict gun rights, first of all, I am a big fan of checks and balances of government. And the reason why I'm a fan of slowing down the government with checks and balance. In fact, I'm actually a fan of slowing down the government entirely to where you almost have to have 99% support to get anything done in Congress. Because honestly, my opinion is that we have far too many laws on the books as it is. I want to ask you, when the government was shut down, did you notice any difference? Let's assume that you weren't working for the government, because if you were, obviously, you may have been one of the furloughed individuals. And in those cases, by the way, you were given unemployment, and in addition to that, you were also given back pay, in which case you had to pay back your unemployment. But that was even being fought in places like Oregon, by the way. People were like, oh, no, I should be able to get both. I should get paid for my time off by the government, and I should get paid unemployment by the government as well for the same thing, double pay. That's what these people are trying to get. But I digress. Let's go back. When the government was shut down, did you notice anything wrong? Did you even notice that the government was shut down? If you weren't trying to go to monuments and things like that, you didn't even notice it, is my guess. Now, if you were going to monuments, you may have been one of those people that were not allowed to enter into war memorials and things along those lines because they shut down the park. However, it's these moves like this that make it ever so clear to anyone who's paying attention that these things are being shut down as a way to punish you. It doesn't take anyone there to let you into a war memorial so you can watch the war memorial and pay your respects. It doesn't require government in this process. However, what does require government is to keep you out, which is what they were doing. They had security there that was preventing people from entering these war memorials. Just so you, everyday Americans, feel the pain. Oh, now the pain is pushed on you because now you can't go to these war memorials that you have every right to be at, first of all, because it's public property. You own it. You own it just as much as anyone else. You. So, when we're talking about government, I am a huge fan of bogging the government down with as much red tape as possible, creating ridiculous checks and balances out the wazoo. I want so many checks and balances that you have to get so much support in order to get a new law on the books. That's my opinion. I think it should be well past bipartisanship. I think we should be talking about supermajorities, things along those lines, and have other branches of government have the ability to check and balance, which we already do. But many of these branches are giving their own power up to an imperial presidency. But that's not what I came here to talk about today. The reason I have a fundamental issue with "do it for the children," that phrase, is because this phrase is meant to get people emotionally charged. It's meant to get people to the point where they're not thinking clearly, and you have so much emotion about an issue. Now, I want to just think back to your everyday life. We hear all the time, maybe you shouldn't send that text message or make that phone call when you're a little heated up. Maybe you should wait for yourself to calm down. Maybe you should wait until you're clear-headed again, until you take action or do something. Maybe you had an employer get you upset and you're about to lay into him. And maybe you should just take a couple of minutes time to calm down. Well, that's what checks and balances are. Checks and balances are that time to calm down. I don't want to ever get to the point in our government where one man can just make unilateral action across the board. Like we saw President Obama, he just, one man signed with his pen, and now Mount McKinley, the highest mountain in America, is now Mount Denali. Now there's discussion between whether or not the Alaskans approve this and all that, and all this is great. That's great. If the Alaskans wanted it to be Mount Denali, that's all fine and dandy. But it was named Mount McKinley because there was a constitutional bill that went through and named it that. And now for the president to just by executive action to just change the name of Mount McKinley to Mount Denali, that's not how we do things in this country. It may have been the right thing to do, but it was done wrong. But again, this is the liberal mindset. This is I don't even really want to call them liberal. This is the imperialistic mindset. This is the leftist mindset where they can just do it. The ends justify the means. It doesn't matter how we got here. It doesn't matter whose rights we had to trample over to get here. We're here, and this is a good place to be. That's the way they look at it. That's why they believe in using emotional causes. That's why they'll parade victims of gun violence on their stage to emotionally supercharge an issue. That's why they use these tactics. And I am a big fan, and I think many of you are, of these checks and balances that we use to restrain our government. I think that we absolutely have to have these checks and balances. These are what prevent one man from going it alone. This is not the way things were intended for an imperial presidency to just be able to do whatever they want. Obama talks about his biggest frustration is being stymied on gun control. He's so frustrated about it. And I can guarantee you, if he thought that he could get away with restricting more gun rights with an outright ban, if he thought he could get away with it, he would do it. He would absolutely do it. And I seem like I'm beating this drum a lot, but I have a clip of Dianne Feinstein saying, "Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them in. If I could get all the votes, I would ask for an outright ban." Here's the clip. And if I
could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
And the president is no different. This is the same ilk. These are the same people that want to restrict your rights, that will stop at nothing if they think they can get away with it. And it's all political agenda. That's all it is. But let's actually talk about some of this phrase, "do it for the children." What's some history? Where has this been used before? Well, it's been used all over, but I want to highlight one in particular, one specific use that it was used before in the Jim Crow South. Now, if you're not aware of this, this isn't really taught in very many history books from, I don't remember learning about it in high school, but in the Jim Crow South, one thing that was happening was segregation. We all are aware of this. You know, that they believed that you could separate people and they would still be equal. And during this separation, you know, blacks had certain places that they were allowed to eat, drink, where they had places on the bus that they were supposed to be in the back of the bus. They had certain water fountains that they were allowed to use. All of this, by the way, mandated by law. Now, there's a big difference between an individual saying, you know what, I don't want to serve your kind, all right, which I think is diabolical. I think that is completely racist to say, I'm not going to serve your kind here. But I think that people have a right as business owners to make that call. And I think that we, as patrons to those places, should be the ones to hold them accountable, not the government. I don't think that the government should be responsible for that. I think that we, the people that go spend our money in these businesses, should vote with their dollars. If we don't support that, then we should not support that business. It's pretty simple, right? That's a free market. That's a free market solution right there. But again, the Jim Crow South, it's mandated by law, all of these things. So if you actually allow an African-American person to eat in your restaurant and it's a whites-only restaurant, you just violated the law. You can go to jail. Now, we can talk about civil disobedience, and I think many cases like that, there was civil disobedience from whites who were on the side of equality. And they helped overturn these Jim Crow. But do it for the children. Do it for the children. One of the things that an initiative that was pushed was to segregate bathrooms. And they said that we should do this for the children because they thought that African Americans carried different diseases than white people. And we had to make sure that African Americans did not use whites-only toilets, because if they did, we could get some kind of disease that only African Americans carry. Now, I mean, African Americans, they do have some diseases like sickle cell that, you know, and even I'm sure white people have diseases that only we get. I can't think of any right now, but, you know, some diseases are racist like that. So, but to actually say that we need to protect our children from African-American diseases in our toilets, and they used the children as the example. This is a perfect example. Racism being used to benefit supposedly our children, which, you know, I think this is wrong. I think this is abhorrent. And I'm very grateful that we had people that were willing to stand up against that. I look at the Black Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, and I'm just, honestly, I'm just shocked at how many people were willing to stand up. You know, I honestly do believe that we are in a new civil rights movement, and it's us versus the statists. It's people that want nothing more than to give the federal Leviathan power and control. And in doing that, they take away your rights little by little. They take away your free speech. They shout it down. They take away, and it's all being perpetuated in many cases on every level. I mean, just look at the colleges. And by the way, I'm in college right now. I have a professor who will remain nameless, but this professor, we were talking. It's a poetry class. I'm not really a big fan of poetry, by the way. I've tried to give poetry a fair shot. It's not my thing. But anyway, we were talking and we were analyzing the poetry, and we're going over this. And basically, one of the things that he was asking, one question is, how does poetry help mankind? How does poetry in general help society? And the part about poetry that I felt actually did help society was the fact that it forces us to analyze and think critically about what these people meant, because poetry is very cryptic in many cases. They use metaphors and all sorts of different other stuff to where you actually have to figure out, well, what are they actually trying to say? You read the words meant one thing, but what were they implying? What else could they be talking about? That's how poetry is. For those of you who don't like it like I do, I stayed away from poetry. So my answer was, well, if we're thinking critically and we're thinking about philosophy, we're thinking along morality lines and things along those lines, then that in turn actually makes us create things like society and rule of law and things along those lines. So that actually benefits society. That helps mankind. And I say this to my professor, and he responded by saying, unless you're an unarmed black man. And I was shocked that, and I basically just blew off what he was saying and carried on with my point. But this is what they're being taught in school. This is what's being taught in our colleges. And this is not the first leftist Marxist professor I've run into, by the way. I had a professor that was talking about how capitalism is evil and socialism is the way to go. And I've had people in my classes talking about Bernie Sanders, that they love Bernie. That this is happening in our schools. And don't even think for a moment that this doesn't have a filter out mentality. Like this isn't going to filter out to the rest of society. These are the people that will be the new leaders in industry and government. These are the new people that are going to be taking control. And this is what they're learning in college. Now, granted, there is people there like me and you and other people in college that don't buy into this. But also, just to point out, I try to keep my head down in college. I say my opinion, but I'm trying not to get into debates with people too much in there because I know that it could negatively affect your grade. And, there's been times where I have actually seen that happen. I had an instructor ask me my opinion about global warming and in a paper, and I wrote it down. I'm writing all this stuff down. I'm giving all the evidence that I have against the argument, and I'm commenting on how the book that we had was wrong when it said that there is a verifiable link between carbon dioxide and human activity and the warming of the earth, which there is no verifiable link. No one can tell you. No scientist out there can say if you add this many parts of carbon into the atmosphere, it will raise the Earth's temperature by this many degrees. There's no direct correlation. This is a guess. That's all it is. Using computer models, which we have already seen have been wrong. And wrong, and wrong, and now we're supposed to believe that this one is right until it's wrong, and then they have it right again. But this is what's being taught in our schools. And if you challenge it, if you speak up against it, they can mark you off, which I had that happen. I got my grade marked off because they asked me my opinion, and my opinion disagreed with theirs. And because they didn't believe what I was saying, I gave them facts and statistics. They didn't like it. I got marked off. So the point is that this happens, and conservatives, libertarians, people who love free markets, people who love liberty, people like that, we're silenced in schools. We're either in the process of being indoctrinated, or we're just keeping our heads down because if we don't, we'll suffer the consequences. Which honestly, big deal at this point. I've spoken up several times, and sometimes I don't want to get into a philosophical debate with people who it's just a waste of time to talk with. It's like talking to a brick wall. But sometimes, I think it's important that we speak up in those kind of scenarios. But doing stuff when we're emotionally charged, back to the original premise here, doing things for our children, that's a great concept, to do something for our children. Well, I would say that the best thing that we could do for our children is to stop selling them into slavery through this national debt. We're kicking the can down the road on balancing a budget and paying off our debt and being responsible. Right now, we are immature teenagers just racking up daddy's credit card. And in this case, the credit card is going to be paid off by our children. And it amounts to millions of dollars, especially when you start talking about unfunded liabilities, millions of dollars owed per citizen of this country. We have over $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. That's not even to mention the $18 trillion of debt that we have now. And all of this extra money, all these unfunded liabilities, they're going to hit. These are going to hit eventually, and the bill is going to come due. But we're not doing this for the children. We're screwing over our children. We are allowing our children to foot this bill. You know, and this is coming from the same politicians that say, take away the guns for the children. Take away the guns. While they're simultaneously calling for more entitlement programs and a bigger welfare state and all these other things. They're doing these, they're taking out this debt, and it's not their debt that they have to, soon enough they'll be out of power, they'll be old, they will not be involved in the political process anymore, and a new generation will step up, and that new generation is who's going to have to figure out these problems. We're not doing anything for the children except creating a worse situation for them in the future. We're stealing their futures. And I think it's wrong, and I think it's high time that we do something about it. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. We talked about it pretty extensively last episode. We're going to get into it again and some of the new things that we found out. So anyway, you guys do not want to miss this next segment because it's pretty crazy. We have a conference call that we're going to play between Black Lives Matter protesters, and I'm going to give you my analysis on it. And anyway, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. Thanks for sticking with us. If you want to join today's conversation, I would appreciate it if you would give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Feel free to join in. You can also message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Lots of other ways you can join the conversation. Also, you can email us at talk@OnTheMoveShow.com. So, anyway, when we last left, we were talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I want to kind of dive into this conversation a little bit here. You know, first and foremost, I'm adamantly saying now that the Black Lives Matter movement is the new KKK, and this is simple. This is a simple conversation. It's not about equality. That's not what they're calling for. They're calling for actual violence towards whites and police officers. That's what they're calling for. I want to make it clear that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would not have supported this movement. This movement is about violence, and his general message that if you get nothing from Dr. Martin Luther King is nonviolence. That was his message. You meet hate with love. That is Dr. Martin Luther King's message, his legacy. And why do you meet hate with love? Well, I've said this before in the past, and let's explain this before we get into Black Lives Matter. I think this is relevant. Why is it important to meet hate with love? Why is nonviolent protest important? Well, number one, they don't know how to react to it. All right, hateful people, the government, for example. I'm not saying that all people working for the government are hateful, but governments in general, they do not understand how to handle nonviolent protests. They don't get it. So, again, to governments or hateful people in general, every problem is essentially a nail, and they are a hammer. They only know one way to react to scenarios of disobedience, to react to opposition, and that is through violence. That's the only way that hate understands how to react to opposition, is violence. Because violence is hateful. So, and governments, they only know how to respond with overwhelming force. That's all they know. So, yes, you may go out there non-violently, and you may be met with violence. And that is kind of the point. Not that we want that to happen. Not that we want violence to happen. If we're in a world where we can non-violently protest and no violence is met with us, then that's amazing. That's a great world. That's awesome. That means your freedom of speech is protected, and you can say what's on your mind. That's great. And your opposition, they may be out there counter-protesting, but no one's being violent. And all points of view are being expressed peacefully. That is a great society right there, where you can have that. The open dialogue, people choosing sides, that's amazing. But at some point, when you know that your voice will be met with violence, the point of going out nonviolently is to meet that violence with nonviolence. And it's a hearts and minds campaign. I mean, that is essentially what we're talking about. When you know that there is evil, there is hatred, there are people that will do harm to you if you go speak your mind. There will be consequences for your actions, and you do it anyway. You stand up and you do it anyway. You meet that violence with love. You meet their violence with non-violence. You do nothing as they spray you with water hoses, beat you in the head with batons, and release attack dogs. You do nothing? This will make the news, first of all. And this is what happened during Dr. Martin Luther King's civil rights movement, is they were met with violence and they did nothing. They responded non-violently. Yeah, they were doing civil disobedience, but they did not attack the officers who, by the way, Democratic sheriffs, just to point out, Democrats in the South who were responsible for this violence. But yet the Democrats are now the party of the minorities. Somehow, they just swept that underneath the rug. Don't pay attention to our checkered past. Don't worry about all that. But now we love you guys. This isn't about getting your votes. We're here to protect you. We love you guys. And it's these evil white Republicans who are greedy and rich capitalists, by the way, that, you know, if it wasn't for them, you'd have a better life. So be angry about it. Be angry at these white people. Be angry at the police who are oppressing you. Yeah. So again, this is the history of racism in the Jim Crow South, and the point is to meet this violence with love, and that is what Dr. Martin Luther King did, and that's why the movement was successful. People saw for the first time this movement on their television. You know, it's one thing to hear about it. It's one thing to hear that there's things going on in the South. You know, there's a civil rights movement. Okay. You know, and people already have their mind made up in many cases. You know, a lot of people made up their mind out of ignorance. They weren't around it. They didn't see it. They didn't understand the struggles that were going on. And you know, it's kind of hard to blame if you don't see it. If no one's talking about it, how do you know? How do you know about it? And therefore, after seeing it, it calls you to action. It calls you to do something. You have to do something. You have to get out there, get on the move. You got to do something. When you see this kind of injustice coming in on your television, you're watching TV, you're watching the news, you see people who are just trying to be peaceful. They're non-violent, getting attacked, violently attacked. People getting killed, thrown into jail, attacked by dogs. It's disgusting. And when good people see that, they have to act. It changes you. It's just like, people who have been watching the Planned Parenthood videos. Many people have been converted to a pro-life stance after watching these videos. And at a very minimum, people understand now why it is morally objectionable to force people to pay their tax money to fund this program. It calls you to action. You have to do, once you see it, you have to do something about it. Yet, we're not doing anything about Planned Parenthood, by the way. In fact, they just got more money. They're getting more funding than before. I just don't know what's going on. But many people around the country have been changed on this subject. And it's just like that movement. It came in and they watched it and they had to see it and they changed their viewpoint. And many white Americans, by the way, and this is one thing that is extremely important to point out, especially when you start talking about racism in this country and the white dominance over the minority. Okay, it's important to point out that African Americans they struggled to get out of that, but it was white people as well who realized that it was wrong to treat these human beings inhumanely. It was wrong, and though many white people are responsible, and none of them alive today, for slavery, but also many white people are responsible for African Americans being equal. I mean, at least equally treated, in the eyes of the law. So, it's something that nobody really talks about, is that white people gave up their position of dominance and oppression over minorities willingly. They did so willingly. And this, anywhere where slavery has been gone, it happened. It was because a majority of people in America or that area, that country, decided that this is wrong. It's wrong to treat people like this. And we have to do something about it. So, you have the resentment left over from slavery and Jim Crow South and all of that. And I understand resentment, and obviously you're going to have that. And I thought that within my generation, I thought that we had pretty much beaten this. I thought that the vast majority of younger American millennials didn't really worry too much about race. I don't. First of all, if you don't know, by the way, I'm in a interracial marriage, so I don't care about race. All right, it doesn't bother me. And I thought that the majority of Americans' youths these days were kind of the same way. I thought many people just didn't think about race that often. I don't treat people differently based on the color of their skin. I treat them based on the content of their character. I treat them on the actions that they do and what they say. That's how I treat people. And I think that the vast majority of Americans do the same. At least I thought that. But with these movements like Black Lives Matter, they are stirring up the pot. And this is inextricably linked to the left and President Obama. One of the very first things he did, his very first speech, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, was to say that the police acted stupidly when they arrested a Harvard law professor. Maybe the circumstances, it could have been, but he was like, I don't know anything about the circumstance, but the police acted stupidly. And, ever since then, it's just been a stirring of the racial pot, trying to get people riled up. And it's not necessarily all Obama's fault, but he is to blame in some aspects of this for creating racial tension. He was supposed to be the president that got us all together, that got us over this last remnant of racism. He was the first black president. I mean, he was supposed to bring us together. If anybody could have done it, it could have been him, but he took every single opportunity to divide us, to pit us against each other, because that's one thing that benefits the left. Angry people arguing amongst themselves. You divide these groups up, you get them to compete against each other for governmental favors, for governmental equality or justice, social justice. Those social justice warriors out there. You get them to basically fight amongst themselves and not actually pay attention to the real enemy, and it's the statist government that's growing every day, sprouting new heads on the hydra. You're not paying attention to the real problem. And in fact, to the real reason why we have problems in America. Every problem we have is big government associated. Every problem. Maybe there's a few that aren't. But here's the thing. If there's a problem, there's usually a solution to it, a free market solution. And in many cases, the big government is just standing in the way and blocking and preventing us from implementing free market solutions to problems. Therefore, that's a big government problem. And that's lots of problems, not to mention the problems that the big government is actually imposing upon us every day. So, Black Lives Matter. Why are they the new KKK? Why would I make such a bold accusation? Well, let's see. The KKK, they called for violence against African Americans. They called for African Americans to be lynched, which obviously hateful thing to do. And very racist and obviously illegal. These are illegal. To kill another human being, illegal. But in addition, let's talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. I have a video here, a clip, and I want to give you guys some warnings here for the graphic nature of what you're about to hear. There is cursing, there is some very violent, descriptive language in this. So if you are offended by this, I would recommend that maybe you walk away or turn this off. But I am only doing it because I want you to hear it. I want you to hear what this movement is saying. I feel that it is incredibly important that we actually listen to the words of individuals. We listen to the words of people. We listen to the words of politicians. We listen to the words of government. Take them for their word. Listen to what they say they're going to do. They're not hiding it. They're being extremely clear about their intentions, just like the mullahs in Iran. Death to America, death to Israel. Yeah, we can really negotiate with these guys. This is going to work out in our favor to trust them. Listen to their words. And again, graphic language warning. This clip is approximately 2 minutes and 39 seconds. So if you need to walk away, I understand, but I would recommend that you listen and understand that this is what this movement is calling for. And it may not be all of them. They like to hide behind the concept of it not being centralized, which it is. They have leaders, but they claim that it's not centralized. But they have people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes, and they say that we're not responsible for that because that this isn't a centralized organization. That's just one individual. We don't endorse that. However, they don't disparage it either. Anyway, here's the clip. I'll just go ahead and play it for you again. For the next 2 minutes and 39 seconds, you'll be hearing some pretty vulgar language and violent speech. So, you've been warned. Here it is.
Until the police ain't there no more, and that's when we should act. When the motherfuckers are by themselves, that's when we should start fucking them up. Like they do us, when there's a bunch of them niggas taking one of us out, that's how we should roll up. Since we already rolled up in gangs anyway, probably will be 6 or 7 black motherfuckers. See that white person and lynch their ass. Let's turn the table. I think if we start turning tables and cops start losing people, this will be a whole different story.
Yeah.
Because then it will be a state of emergency, and there's either two things going to happen: either we gonna have a big ass arms war, or niggas are gonna start backing up. And we're already getting killed out here, so what the fuck we got to lose?
Yep, that's true. That's so fucking true.
We just need to turn the tables on them. Our kids are getting shot out here. Somebody needs to become a sacrifice on their side. That's just how I feel. Like I said, everybody ain't down for that shit or whatever. But like I said, everybody has a different position in war. We need to get motherfuckers who's down for that shit and do it, because they don't give a fuck anyway. So we might as well utilize them for that shit and turn the tables on these niggas. So we can start looking like we ain't having that many casualties, and it'd be more casualties on their side instead of ours, because we out here killing black people. Black lives don't matter, not to those motherfuckers. So we gotta make it matter to them. But we gotta start putting more black people per white people. That's what we need. Find a motherfucker that's alone, snap his ass, and then fucking hang him from a damn tree. Take a picture of it, send it to motherfuckers. I bet it'll turn the whole tables on shit. We just need one example, and people will start watching. Because it's gonna be a trickle down effect. As soon as one person gets hung, people are gonna start having an idea to do that shit some more, and it's gonna become a trickle effect. Black people are good at starting trends. I mean, we just are. So if we get one group of black people to hang one of these racist motherfuckers and let the Confederate flag, you know what I'm saying? Let the Confederate flag hang right where they're hanging, this will be a different conversation. We'll be having a conversation about you. We're having a conversation about how many more niggas gonna try to attack us, and we gonna get the upper hand. We need the upper hand.
Not just one.
Okay. Now, again, I apologize for the language in that video. I thought about censoring it and putting all the bleeps in there. First of all, that was a lot of bleeps that I would be putting in, but I thought it would take away from actually being able to understand what he was trying to say. There were far too many bleeps to actually make a coherent sentence out of most of it. I would have had to bleep out most of what he was saying. So, you know, this is extremely frustrating for me because this isn't being covered. This side of the conversation isn't being covered. And I just want to point out, if you are one of the people, like, for example, in Ferguson, where the father says, burn this city down, all right, he should have been responsible and held legally liable for any arson that happened in that city because he instigated it. Now, granted, the people who took action, they should also be responsible, but the people who incite violence should be held accountable by the law. And I want you to think back. Just go in the Wayback Machine in your mind here and think back to how many times the Patriot movement, the Tea Party, has been called out for racism and things like that, and how much the media has tried to push this, that the Tea Party is violent and racist, and yet they have failed to actually show anything that would link a movement like the Tea Party to any kind of violence. It's been an utter failure. They've tried. They've tried to pin that on the Tea Party, on the Patriot movement. They've tried. And they have been unsuccessful because patriots just aren't there calling for violence to other races. We're not calling for race wars. We're calling for the government to get out of our way. That's what our movements are about. Now, this movement here, this is calling for violence, and it should be condemned. Condemned by the media. Obviously, it should be pointed out. The sheer hypocrisy, the reason why they are not calling it out is because this is their side. If you just imagine for one moment that a Tea Party patriot was saying these exact words, do you think that it would go unnoticed in the media? Do you think that this wouldn't be the headline news on CNN? Do you really think that MSNBC Crazy would not be talking about this right now? Of course they would. But now it's on their side. You know, the stuff that they've been saying has been on our side, has not actually been the racism, the bigotry. You know, yeah, there are racists and there are bigots. And yeah, maybe they infiltrate the Tea Party, but that's not what the message is about. And I know for a fact, when we see people in our groups that don't represent us, that are affiliated with us, we take action and remove them. I've seen it done. I've seen it. I personally have done this. We have had an issue in our group before. By the way, if you're not a member of our group, On The Move, it's facebook.com/groups/OnTheMoveShow. We have removed people for using racial slurs. I feel like, that it's very easy to conduct a conversation without using racial slurs, to get your point across without racial slurs. In many cases, I'll ask people to stop using racial slurs in our group. And in some cases, the most egregious, I'll just give them the boot, because I don't want to be associated with that. I have a freedom of association. I can choose who I associate with, and I refuse to associate with racists and bigots. I will not do it. If you're a racist and bigot, I'm sorry. I don't want anything to do with you. And I think that this sentiment is deeply ingrained in the patriot movement. We know that we are the ambassadors for liberty. We know that we are the faces that people see when we're talking about our message. We can't dilute the message with other hateful things that we don't agree with. We can't allow someone else to be the spokesperson for our movement. But yet the Black Lives Matter, it's decentralized. They say that they don't have leaders, but they do. They have people that are pulling strings behind the scenes. And this is being said by their members, by leaders in their movement, that we need to go out there and kill white people. We need to start giving them some casualties. We need to kill police officers. And by the way, this conversation took place the day before the shooting of the two journalists by the enraged gay African-American man who felt that he was being discriminated against his whole life. People are just targeting him, and he's the victim, and all of this resentment that he has and racism towards white people. And it crystallized and turned into this heinous act that he did. He killed people. And in a large part, I think the Black Lives Matter movement is responsible for his radicalization. Maybe he was already there, but they at least instigated this. And to the same token, if the same hateful speech was being done inside the patriot community, which it's not, if it was being spoken about and somebody took action and did something, they would be held accountable. Are we seriously saying that what you say, if you're saying we should go kill white people, and then somebody hears your words and says, yeah, he's right, and then goes and kills a white person, that person who said to do it shouldn't be held responsible? Well, I know for a fact that Charlie Manson did the same thing, and he's in jail. He said we should go kill those people, and people went and killed those people. He's in jail for life. Charlie Manson did that same thing, and people died, and he was held responsible. This is the thing that's so frustrating to me. This is not about equality. This is not about trying to get people to actually be aware of a conversation being had, to be aware that there's a struggle going on in the black community. No. This is about bending the knee. You better bend the knee to our movement. You better admit that only Black Lives Matter, or we'll kill you. They're talking about a race war. They want a race war. Why is this not being covered on the media? Why is the mainstream media failing to talk about this seriously? Why is our government failing to hold these people responsible? The day before the two journalists were killed, this conversation was recorded. The day before. And we don't think that there's any correlation between this movement and what this guy's doing, especially with his psychopathic manifesto, where he was talking about the same talking points as Black Lives Matter. And then we see that a police officer is killed, assassinated, cold blood assassination while pumping his gas. A white police officer killed by an African-American man, and I don't know if this is related. I don't think it's that far of a stretch because he wasn't involved in a circumstance. The guy the assassin came up and just shot him while he was pumping gas. It wasn't part of a police stop. It wasn't part of anything he was doing. He wasn't even talking with this person, and he came up and shot him. And we're not going to hold this movement responsible. We're not going to call it what it is, hate speech. We're not going to do anything about it. We see it. You see it now. And we have to stand up against it. We cannot allow ourselves to be silenced and shouted down by these racist individuals who are trying to play off white guilt, I guess. We should feel bad because our ancestors had slaves in the past. Look, I had nothing to do with slavery, and I think it's abhorrent. If I had anything to do with it, it wouldn't have happened. But I don't. I didn't have any choice. I can't change history. I'm proud to be my race, just like I hope you're proud to be your race. I understand that there's a bad history in my race with racism, and there's a bad history with slavery. However, it's important to note that racism cuts both ways. You can be racist against white people, and I think it is incredibly racist to judge people for their ancestors' actions. You're condemning an entire race of white people for the actions of their ancestors. No one alive today owned slaves in America. None. No one. Yeah. My grandparents, they didn't even own slaves, all right? I don't even know how far back, and I guarantee you my family's not a wealthy family, all right? So I guarantee you my family didn't own slaves too. I know I had a relative or somebody in my ancestry tree. I went on Ancestry.com, and somebody in my family fought in the Revolutionary War, and I also found out that somebody fought on the side of the Confederacy in the Civil War. But I'll tell you right now, if they're fighting in the Confederacy, they could have been fighting for any number of reasons. Very well, they could have supported the cause of slavery. But I want to tell you, that's not me. All right, that's my ancestors somewhere down the line. And, I don't agree with everybody I'm related to. And I don't hold you or other people responsible for the opinions of other people. So, we're all individuals. We all have our own minds, our own opinions, and to hold someone accountable simply because of their race, to make assumptions about people, to judge people, to discriminate against people, to treat them differently because of their race and because of the background that race has, it's wrong. It is absolutely wrong. It's racist. Anyway, I think that the media has to call this out for what it is, and it's absolute racism. It is the new KKK, and this is not to be confused with the Black Panther movement, because here's the difference. The Black Panther movement, they do not get as much play on media. Media doesn't so much want to be affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement. The left, disregard. The media doesn't want to be affiliated with the Black Panthers. They have a checkered past, and the left, they don't really want to associate with them so much. But the Black Lives Matter movement, it's okay. They're the same thing. They're calling for race wars and violence against white people and police. They're calling for race wars. It's the same thing. Just a different name. And that's another thing that the left likes to do, is to name things different things, even though they mean the same exact things. So, anyway, I just want to say, first of all, here, we're coming to the end of the first hour here, and if you are on the 405media.com, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow, and check out our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Also, you can follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. If you're on the 405 Media, the first hour is the only thing that we cover over there. So, anyway, I just want to say thanks so much for you guys over there. Stay tuned for the second hour. We'll be right back after these messages, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore. with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us, MacPack. By the way, if you want to join today's conversation, feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can message us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Get us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. Send us an email, talk@OnTheMoveShow.com. All right, so we have some comments here, and I just want to read them here and put some of your comments on the air. Sorry, I had trouble saying that. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so let's see. We got one listener here, Lauren. He's talking about the amount of nuclear weapons between the United States and Russia. He says, with over 3,700 nukes between the U.S. and Russia, we have both been well behaved because we all know what the end result would be. However, if Iran becomes nuclear capable, all logic and clear thinking goes right out the window. They must not be allowed to become a nuclear power. I absolutely agree. Emily says, yes, this is just one example of the mentality of the rest of the world. The rest of the world is dealing with. So one thing I want to talk about here. Oh, Emily goes on to say that we should put all the racists on an island and take away all the exit availability. Look, I absolutely can't stand racism. You know, I have a major problem with people treating people differently based on the color of their skin, ethnicity, things along those lines. You know, if people would just treat others the way that they want to be treated, I think the world would be a much better place. You know, I am a pacifist when it comes down to it. You know, I don't want to hurt other people. I feel bad when I see people who need help. I'm one of those people that will help others. You know, I think it's my responsibility that I have to myself to help you. You know, some of these things, I do these things selfishly. You know, I may be helping you, but I'm helping me at the same time. I feel good about helping people, and it relieves a weight off of me when I feel bad. When I see something that I have to do, when I have to help somebody, I feel bad, and it bothers me. It torments me when I see somebody in need of help and I do nothing about it. You know, so selfishly I help them. You know, that it's for me too. So, and you know, I want to get here into this conversation about the left's fundamental misunderstanding about centralization. These are part of our featured topics. And do we have an actual obligation to other people? Do we actually have a legal obligation, first of all, but a moral obligation? Do we have to help other people? So let's actually start out with the left's fundamental misunderstanding about centralization of power. All right, so when we're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and the left in general, they really don't like the concept of a decentralized authority. police power. All right, they hate police. They hate the police. Yet the police are the people that are out there enforcing the laws that they perpetuate. The police are the ones who are the enforcement arm of the federal Leviathan. So let's just be clear about that. The police are the tool of these tyrants, but yet they hate them. And why do they hate them? They hate them because it's decentralized. They have a harder time controlling these police because the police can say no. They don't work for the feds. The police works state, local governments, things along those lines. So they can say no. The police can say no. I will not obey that unconstitutional order. No, I will nullify that law because it's not getting enforced here. And the left hates that. They absolutely hate it. And the Black Lives Matter movement is being used by the statist authority, the statist left. They are using this movement to help decentralize police power. I'm sorry, to help centralize police power, not decentralize. They want to actually make the police federalized. All police controlled underneath the federal government. All right, they think that if they can do that, everything will be fine. You know, the police will be fine as long as only the feds have control of it. Do you really believe that? First of all, if you're a leftist and you actually believe that the police are racist, you actually believe that there are people out there, police officers, the vast majority of police officers out there targeting African Americans and oppressing them because of their race. If you actually believe this, why do you think anything will change when it's all underneath one organization? All right? Do you think that one organization will be capable of micromanaging the affairs of every single police department around the town? Just imagine the bureaucracy, by the way. Just imagine the bureaucracy and how many more bureaucrats we're going to have to hire in order to attempt to manage the affairs of every police department in the country. It's first of all, it won't be possible. There's no way that they'll be able to keep track of all of it, because governments are inefficient, and that's the hallmark of government affairs. Government programs is inefficiency, cost associated with it. But then in addition, one great thing, if you actually do believe that there are racist police departments all over the country, if you actually believe that, which I don't, I absolutely do not. I think that there are bad apples in police departments, and maybe entire police departments are bad apples. But wouldn't you rather want to be able to roll the dice on maybe you'll find a place that doesn't have these bad apples? Wouldn't you want to be able to vote with your feet, to go somewhere where bad police officers, racist departments aren't around? You find a place that is a haven for whatever you want. You know, if you're an African American and you want to find a place that respects the rights of African American, you do your homework and find out what police departments around are the best. Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want to have more control in your local government, in your local police department, voting for your sheriff? Wouldn't you want to have it less centralized and more decentralized so you as a civilian can have control over your government? Wouldn't you want that? But, of course, when things become centralized, they become harder for local communities to affect change. It's a lot easier for us to petition change in our local, state governments, county governments, things along those lines, because it takes less people to make change in those. But when dealing with the Fed, you could have 100,000 people on a petition and the president just ignores you. You could have complete support behind it in your community, trying to change the police department, a federalized police department in your community. You could have 100% support, and the feds can just ignore you because you're just some small podunk town that they don't really care about. You know, you're 1,000 miles away from them, and they don't need to worry about you. That is a problem. So I would recommend that we decentralize the police. We get the federal government's hands off of us, off of the police departments. Therefore, we can actually affect change the way we want. But the left, they don't understand that. They think that if they centralize all this power and put it in the hands of the president, they don't understand how this power could be turned and used against them. You know, that's the thing. That's the failure of the left, is that they don't seem to understand how when you build up an infrastructure that could be used for tyrannical purposes, even if you don't think that it will be, it potentially could be one day. So even if your guy is in power today and you don't think that he's not trustworthy, you think that he absolutely could be trustworthy, but you give him the power, the tools that he needs to be a tyrant, maybe he won't be, but the next guy could be. And the guy after that. Do we really believe that down the line that no one is ever going to reach high office that will use this power in a way that we didn't intend? I mean, it's already being done with the Patriot Act. The author of the Patriot Act said, the Patriot Act never authorized this stuff that they're doing. We never intended for that. I don't support this. But yet it's going on anyway. The author came out against the actions that the government is using the Patriot Act with. And still, they're still doing it. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, the failure to understand the simple concept that when you put power in the hands of fewer people, you make it harder to, number one, affect change and easier for a tyrant to impose its will on the people. I don't understand. And I think the left, they're coming at this from a position of superiority. They think that they're better than everyone and better than other countries and better than our ancestors. They believe that they are superior, mentally in every way superior. Than all of history. And just look at the other. There are real tyrants in the world today. So the left actually believes that we Americans are better than the rest of the world. Morally, philosophically, reactions that we have, everything, we're better. We're just better. This is coming from, honestly, this is a xenophobic position to have, to assume that we are above natural law, we're above economics, supply and demand. We're above all of these things. We're above, corruption. We're above all of these things. We're above destabilization. We could never have a catastrophe in this country be destabilized. I want you guys to look at what's going on right now in Syria. ISIS is taking control. All right, this is kind of unrelated, but we'll link it back here. Okay, ISIS is under control, and there is a human flood of refugees. 500,000 or so refugees that are going north into Europe. They are fleeing the tyrants in Syria, ISIS. They're killing Christians, Muslims who aren't Muslim enough. They're throwing homosexuals off rooftops. They're killing people, stoning them to death, daisy chaining them to explosives and blowing their freaking heads off. This is what's going on. People are running away from this. They're tyrants now in the world. Tyrants now. And we honestly believe here in America that we are above that it could never happen here. Well, I'm here to tell you, it could. It absolutely could. And the direction that we're going is on a fast track towards that. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to have, homosexuals thrown off roofs, all of that, but we're giving this giant federal leviathan everything it needs to turn the keys on of tyranny. And I want to talk here specifically. I wasn't going to talk about this, but let's look at the immigration problem that's going on, because this is immigration. This is a mass exodus that's happening into Europe right now. People are fleeing the Middle East and heading up to the rich, the wealthier countries in Europe. They're even bypassing some of the countries that they can get to on their way to countries like Germany, because Germany is wealthier and it has, a liberal welfare system. They have these programs for people, and these immigrants are coming there illegally. It is illegal immigration. They're packing on trains. They're fighting with police that are trying to stop them. And I understand the point of view from somebody. If this train, on the other end of that train, I have a better life, and on this side of the train, I could possibly die. And things aren't getting any better in Syria, by the way. The Middle East is completely destabilized. Things are falling apart in the Middle East. And I've got news for you. If you think that we're going to avoid a war, I don't know how you can come to that conclusion. If you think that there's some way that we can actually avoid getting in war again in the Middle East, I understand the sentiment to not want to get involved. I don't think that we're going to be able to do that. And I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it, but I digress. I didn't want to talk about it. Let's talk about the immigration thing. So these immigrants are flowing across the border from their tyrannical government. Now, let's look here in America. We have the immigration conversation. You know, obviously we need to make sure that if all of these illegals, somewhere in the southern border, decide to just flood across our border and escape this, the cartels down there, all the bad things that are happening south of our border. If they decide to run away, similar to what's going on in Syria. Now, granted, let's say a tyrannical government takes over south of our border and people are mass exodusing there as well. It's completely possible. It could happen, okay? But if it does, and people are fleeing to America, the last hope, essentially, for the world is the beacon of liberty. If people come here, we have to be able to choose who we allow in and who we don't. Obviously, in the state that we live in now, we need to be able to stop people from flooding across our border. We have a large border. It's hard to prevent that. But how can we do that without creating a wall? Because I've talked about this before. Imagine if the turnkey tyranny happens here. If it's our country that we need to flee and go somewhere else. I mean, first of all, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go in the world? If this country shuts down and we have tyrants in office, the Bill of Rights gets removed, and the government decides that they can decide what rights you have and what rights you don't. If people are being targeted, if we have political prisoners in jail because of their opinions or their speech, if all of this stuff starts to happen, and the government, full-blown tyrant, the government's trying to silence political speech and arresting and killing people, if we see that day, we want to be able to get out. We want an exit. So this is why I'm not a fan any longer of a wall. I realize now that we need to actually stop the conversation about the wall. This is bad. The wall is not a good idea. Looking at the refugees rushing out of their country, thank goodness for them, for their sake, that they were able to get out. Thank goodness for them that their country doesn't have a wall and doesn't have people keeping them in. I want to be able to get out of this country if I have to. If the choice is dying or maybe a better life, of course, I'm going to take any risk. Just like, Cubans that come across the ocean and they're trying to find a better life, to try to escape the Castro regime. This was happening a long time. It's been going on for a long time. People fleeing tyranny. So we want to be able to get out. We don't want our government to establish a police state so strong that, yeah, they can keep people out, but we can't get out as well. We want to be able to get out. At least that's my opinion. I want the ability to get out. I want it difficult for people to come here, and I want it easy for us to leave. That's my opinion. But when we're talking about immigration, I think that the best way to prevent people from coming here in the first place is to look at those incentives. And I've mentioned this before in the past. I've talked about incentives and why people migrate. Let's look at what is happening with these immigrants right now. These immigrants are coming to the rich countries with welfare states. That's why they're coming, because they know that, number one, once they get there, they can stay, but they may not be able to. Let's just point out the fact that at some point, these smaller countries with smaller populations, Germany in particular, we've got, from what I understand, we've got a lot more people here in America than are in Germany. I believe last I checked, there was 330 million Americans, roughly. Let me see here. Population of Germany, 2014. Okay, Germany has 82 million approximately in 2014. 82 million people in their country. Now you start talking about a surge of population of 500,000 or so people that are coming up and living in your country. Does that change the dynamic of your country? Does that change the culture of your country? I know we talk about melting pots and things like that, but does a country have a right to say, you know what, we'll take some of you, but we're not going to take all of you. This is too many people. It will change the dynamic of our country. And let's be honest as well, Europe has not been very successful in the past at actually nationalizing, I guess is the word, their people, making... I guess integrating is a better word. Nationalizing it reminds me too much of the Nazis. But integrating would be a good word. Making people embrace their new culture that they just got. And I don't mean making by force, but making these people proud to be whatever Germans or whatever. That this is a big part of immigration. You move to the country, you embrace that new country's culture. So what we've seen in Europe is that these countries aren't really particularly that good at getting this sentiment with their people, with their immigrants, especially the Muslim population in these countries. So, you know, and even here in America, we're having trouble. Look at Dearborn, Michigan. I wouldn't want to be there. It would be it'd be a difficult place to live, where you know people talk about Sharia law zones and things along those lines. Like I have a major issue with Sharia law, but I digress. You know, the countries do have a right to choose who comes into their country, and you're going to see, you know, the leftists who like to perpetuate the myth and the lie that these European countries are they're all so liberal, and they have a progressive policies that allow open borders, and it's so good, and it's all this big utopia, everything's working out so well in Europe. You're seeing firsthand that these European countries that are supposedly so liberal and so progressive on their immigration policies, they're saying no to some people. And they're saying no because they have the right to control who comes into their country. But those of us who are calling for a wall, I think we need to be very careful because, you know, we're falling into that same elitist mindset of where we're above this. We are above this. This could never happen to us because we're better than these people. We're not. We are human beings. We are victims of the same frailties. We can succumb to corruption. We have all the same human frailties that everyone else has, and we're putting so much faith in our system of government to protect us from these things. These checks and balances that are getting eroded every day, and the federal Leviathan is growing bigger and bigger. We're getting to the point where these checks and balances are going to become useless. Congress aids in making themselves more and more useless every day. They say now is not the time to fight funding for Planned Parenthood. Now is not the time to have that conversation. This is the time. If you're going to have this conversation, this is the time. People need to see you standing up. People need to see bold colors. People need to see a difference in where you stand and where these people stand. And if you're not willing to stand and fight, then people aren't willing to go vote for you. You're going to notice a drop in the polls of who to vote for. Why should I bother voting for this guy when he won't fight for what he believes in and what I believe in? He won't. Now's not the time. He's always capitulating, always saying that we have to win the next election. Well, we won the last election, and we're still not doing anything. That's why people are pissed off. The time is now. The time is now. But we're not going to do anything. Our leadership is a bunch of cowards. The establishment GOP, they are a bunch of spineless cowards who won't do anything even if they have all of Congress and all of the presidency. They won't do it. Nothing will happen with these people. We need to stop voting for them and vote for people who will actually stand up for what they believe in. They will do what they say and say what they mean. We don't need people trying to change the language. So let's go to the next conversation here before we take a break. Do we have an obligation to others? Do you have a legal obligation as far as providing for your fellow man? Should you have to, by force of law, actually give some portion of your money, any portion, or of your property, something along those lines, to pay for other people? I would argue no. I would argue that no, you do not have an obligation legally. I think maybe the argument could be made that you have a moral obligation. Again, I'm one of those people that, I've I've taken people in and tried to help them. I've done things where, I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to actually put in the amount of effort for someone else that I did. And in some cases, I felt like I got burned. Some cases I didn't. Some cases I was really happy that I did things for other people. But I don't think that I have a legal obligation to do things for others. Because here's the thing: when you force people to do something against their will, there's resentment, and they'll resent you for that. All right, and then you start talking about regarding how much money to take. We're talking about taxes, obviously. And then you start resenting people for not paying their fair share. And then when you start taking money from one group and you start using that money to pay for another group, again, there's a resentment towards that group. And this is the political situation that we find ourselves in. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, where, people are trying to organize the government and actually get special favor. We see it with special interest groups. We see it with all sorts of different stuff. Lobbyists lobbying in the government to get the government to give them money, to get the government to give them special favors. Corporations getting the government to give them special tax breaks. So what we have is the people who can't afford to hire lobbyists or pay for the influence in Congress, like Donald Trump, by the way, who can afford to pay both sides of the aisle. When you pay a politician, they'll do whatever the hell you want them to do. That's Trump's words. That's not mine. Donald Trump, crony capitalist. Not a conservative. He's a progressive. But these are what these kind of legal obligations of taxation, of redistribution of wealth. This is what they do. They create resentment. They create tension. I don't think that you have a duty or a responsibility legally to other people. I think you have a right to your property, and I've said this before, that was the reason why our country was created. This to protect, to secure your life, your liberty, and your property. Any actions that the government takes against those fundamental principles is going against the purpose for their creation, to protect life, liberty, and property. When the government tries to take away your liberty, they're going against the purpose for their creation. When they use redistribution of wealth to tax from you and give to others, that's going against the purpose of the creation. That's not their job. That is not their job, to redistribute the wealth equally to everyone, to make a fair society. That's not the job. Their job is simply to protect your life, your liberty, and your property. Any actions outside of that goes beyond the scope of their responsibility. But yet we keep continuing to look more for the federal government to do everything. More centralization. The left's fundamental misunderstanding about centralization. The left's fundamental misunderstanding about the purpose of government. The left's fundamental misunderstanding about liberty. They don't understand. They fail to make the connection. Or when they do, they just deny it. They deny that it exists, that you have a right to your property. Charity is one thing, and I absolutely agree and support charity. I think charity and goodwill, a personal feeling of responsibility towards your neighbors, towards your community, for their well-being. I believe in that, but I don't believe in the forced support of others. I don't believe in coercion. I don't believe in that. I believe in people taking responsibilities for themselves and their communities to actually do something and better someone's lot. Not to give handouts, but to give hand-ups, to help people who genuinely need help, who want help and are willing to work for it, who are not looking for a free ride. There's so many people out there that need that kind of help. And first of all, the government is absolutely horrible at determining the difference between people who need a hand up and people who just want a free ride. They are incapable of making that determination because, again, they're inefficient. They're not able to make these connections. And there's no real incentive for them to do that either. So the purpose of everything I'm saying here is that we need to take the responsibility back. It's not the government's responsibility. It's our responsibility morally, but the government's not capable and definitely should not be regulating morality. Again, it's our moral responsibility, but the government shouldn't regulate morality any more than they should ban alcohol or drugs. They're not capable of doing that. And when you do that, it creates problems. Again, we're talking about big government problems. Most of the problems we see are created by big government. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. You guys don't want to go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the left's Iran deal, the rationale, why they are doing the Iran deal. What is their justification? What do they think? So anyway, I'm going to break this down and give you my analysis. And anyway, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. If you want to join today's conversation, you can do so in a variety of ways. You can either message us at facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can get us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. I'll read your messages live on the air. Also, you can just give us a call. That's an easy way to do it. Our MacPack phone lines are open. The telephone number is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Feel free to make your voice heard. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say on some of the topics we've talked about already today. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the next subject. And actually, I want to kind of sidetrack here a little bit. I want to talk about a family that was arrested for refusing an illegal search. This is on callmegav.com. And many of you may be familiar with Gavin Syme. He's a liberty speaker, and he has been in some legal battles himself. He's been standing up in the name of liberty in courtrooms, and you may be familiar with the struggle. But anyway, I want to play a clip from this video and give you guys just an idea as to some of the doublespeak. We talk about doublespeak all the time and how the left likes to turn words around that have different meanings, and even just the whole idea of social justice. Nobody really knows what that means, even people who are so-called social justice warriors, but there's a lot of doublespeak, and they like to pretend that restrictions aren't there that are there. And then when they say things, they say things covertly and sometimes overtly. Sometimes they say exactly what they mean, and we need to pay attention when they do that. But their justification, just like, for example, the Hillary email, okay? She says, I did not send anything that was marked classified. Marked classified. That means she just didn't put, this is top secret on her emails, which doesn't change the fact that information in those emails are classified. Some of them secret, some of them top secret. classified. Even if it is just classified, it's classified. You can't. You need to be sending that on a classified server. So when she says that the emails weren't marked classified, it just means that she sent information that was classified and didn't mark it. And she also did it on a server that was not supposed to have classified material on it. But anyway, this is the doublespeak. This is what they say. This is the lies that they perpetuate. And they change the language, and they're very careful with the language. So I want you to listen to this video here. And this video has a checkpoint where it's an agricultural checkpoint. And this family is coming through, and they say, hey, if you don't have a warrant, you're not going to search my vehicle. I don't want to submit to any searches if you don't have any reasonable suspicion, probable cause. If you don't have a warrant, then we're not going to submit to any searches. And here's a clip.
This is just an agricultural inspection. I'm wondering where you're traveling from. It's my job.
We're going to drive.
But
We're going to keep driving.
no.
There is no search here. There is an inspection.
What's your definition of an inspection?
Looking in the vehicle for possible host material or agricultural pests.
Okay. Well, what is your definition of a search?
I don't have a definition for a search. I don't.
You don't?
I inspect.
Okay, so this is the situation. They are at this checkpoint. They say that the government, the agents, the Leviathan, is saying that, hey, we're not searching you, we're just inspecting you. See, they're using a different word for the same thing. We're not conducting illegal searches here. We don't need a warrant to inspect. Oh, no. We need a warrant for searches. Well, what's your definition of searching? We don't have a definition for searching. Well, what's your definition for inspecting? Well, looking in the vehicle and making sure that you don't have anything that you're not supposed to have. Well, that's a search. That's called, you're searching for things that aren't supposed to be there. You are indeed conducting a search. And we have a constitutional right against unlawful searches and seizures. But the video goes on. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead here to some of this conversation that's had with these border agents, I guess. I don't really know. This agricultural agents, and these people are armed and searching you. So anyway, I'm going to play some more from this here. Here we go.
Are we free to go?
No.
So you're detaining me?
No.
So then I'm free to go?
No. You are free to go. The conveyance will not pass the inspection point.
Am I and my property, are we free to go?
You are free to go anywhere you'd like to in California.
You can't seize my property.
The conveyance will not pass.
All right, she's talking about a vehicle, a car, as like it's never been discussed before. How many of you have ever, in your entire life, referred to a vehicle as a conveyance? I just want you to ask yourself that. How many out there have actually said, I'm just going to get into my conveyance and go down to the grocery store and pick up some pasteurized milk? Yeah. None of you have ever said that. I would be shocked. If you have, call in, let me know. But this is the doublespeak, the conveyance. You are free to go. You are not being detained. We don't have, the reason why he's not being detained is they don't have any reasonable suspicion or probable cause to detain the individual. However, he ends up getting arrested at the end of this video. You can check it out. It's at Call Me Gab. It's the article and video is titled "Family Arrested for Refusing a Legal Search." It's about a 19-minute video. So they say that you're free to go, but your property is not. It must be searched, or in what they're saying, inspected. Even though they don't have a right to inspect it, they have no probable cause or reasonable suspicion, and it completely violates the Fourth Amendment to actually inspect. You have a right that gives you the freedom from illegal searches, warrantless searches of your person or your property. So she's saying, yeah, you are free to go, but your property isn't. That's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. She doesn't have any reasonable expectation, she doesn't have any reasonable suspicion or probable cause to actually perform this search, but she's holding him illegally anyway. And, the law enforcement officers later, they say, oh, you're a constitutionalist. We've had this problem before. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable at the way that these officers are treating average citizens and how they think of the Constitution. Now, again, this is probably not indicative of every police officer. It's not like every police officer out there is out there trampling on the Bill of Rights, disgracing the oath they took to the Constitution. That's not the case. But in this particular instance, all right, every single officer seemed to have no problem going along with this. Now, this goes back to the conversation we were talking about decentralization. Maybe it's just this department, maybe it's just this area, but I'm willing to bet that this is a state-run thing by the California government. I don't know if this is federal, maybe it is, but it's easier to make changes in smaller governments, even within a state, even smaller than a state, local, county, things like that. So these people are acting on behalf of whatever government is paying them, whatever government they're working for. I don't know if it's state or federal. I'm guessing state because they're at the border of California. But it's one of those things. Like, maybe this department is bad. Maybe most of them are corrupt. Maybe most of them have a disrespect for the Constitution. Maybe not. Maybe just some of them. Maybe we just got unlucky in this particular circumstance, and it's just the officers here. All of them just so happen to have no problem with trampling on the oath that they took to the Constitution for violating individual rights. Maybe. I don't know. But we definitely have a problem. And the problem is that people aren't stopping. The people who are enforcing the laws, people who are the federal Leviathan's enforcement arm, these are the people that need to be questioning the orders, and they're just simply not in many cases. They're unbelievably obedient to the government. Oh, we are not conducting a search. This is an inspection. We are not violating your Fourth Amendment right. This is an inspection. You must submit, submit, submit. Look, this is what it's about. Submit or go to jail. Submit or be punished. And again, you don't have to be wrong to still be punished. Just because you're right, that doesn't mean that you won't still be punished, and you may win in the end. But the punishment is in the process. They busted this guy's window open, drug him out of his car, his family. They threatened to take his kids and put his kids in protective custody, child protective services. They threatened to take his kids. I don't know if they did. I just found out about this before the show. But this is going on all over the country, people. This is not a strange occurrence. This is happening everywhere. And it's a real problem. Now, as I said, we need those people who are good police officers to stand up. The time is now. This bull about a thin blue line and a code of silence, all of this crap needs to go out the window. If you stand up for individual liberty, if you honor your oath to the Constitution, if you are worth the money that we're paying you to protect us, you can't stand silent against this kind of crap anymore. You have to speak up. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. You will not be held unaccountable. It's time that we stand up and say no. And I have to commend the citizens for not just rolling over and not saying, okay, fine, you can search me illegally, you can do whatever you're going to do. Fine, I submit. They stuck with their guns, and they're going to pay the price. The punishment is in the process. Their name will be dragged through the mud. They'll probably have some kind of criminal charge or conviction on their record. They may have to fight in an appeal process. They're going to have to spend months of their life in court, time away from work. They're going to have to fight to get custody back of their kids, if that happened, if that's the process. I mean, this is ridiculous. And, we're supposed to believe that we need to give more authority to the government. We need to give more authority to the federal Leviathan, more influence in our everyday lives. Yep. All right, so let's change the subject. Let's talk about the Iran deal here. We got about 15 minutes left in the program here, so I want to get to the left's idea. What is the rationale? Because anyone who's paying attention, anybody who reads this deal can tell you that, first of all, Iran is going to get a nuclear weapon because of this, because of the deal, not because we didn't do the deal. As the left would tell you, our side is saying this is going to guarantee that Iran gets a nuclear weapon, and the left is saying that if we don't do this, Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon. So their justification is that if we don't do this deal, we'll be in nuclear war. We're going to die. We will die in a nuclear war if we do not have this deal with Iran. So hold on a second. Let me see here. I can't remember what that video was called. I had a clip here of basically a Hollywood propaganda that was being spewed about the Iran deal. Now I can't recall what it was. Trying to think here. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it. It's probably too far back. But anyway. Jack Black and some other celebrities were saying that, if we don't do this deal, we're all going to be dead. We're going to be toasted. We're going to be fried because, Iran's going to get a deal. So we got to fight to get this deal with Iran. Otherwise, we're going to be dead. Now, if that's not fear-mongering, I don't know what is. If you don't take political action and make sure that this deal with Iran goes through, you're going to die? I mean, I understand why people would support that if that's what they actually believe. If you believe that you would die if Iran gets a nuclear weapon and this deal will lead to them getting a nuclear weapon, then yeah, I understand it. But without understanding the deal itself, the deal solely basically depends on us trusting Iran. So if you believe that Iran is going to kill you if they get a nuclear weapon, if you believe that they are that diabolical, that if you don't do this deal to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, if somehow you believe that this deal will prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, just because there's inspections, so to speak, then yeah, I get that. But it's wrong. The inspections won't prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. In fact, it's only going to ensure that, and we'll get into that. But if you believe that Iran will kill you if they get a nuclear weapon, and they're not trustworthy to have a nuclear weapon, so we need to make sure that they don't ever get it because they'll kill us if they do, that's what the left believes, that Iran will kill us if they get a nuclear weapon. That's their fundamental mentality and rationale behind this deal, is that we got to make sure that they don't get one because they'll kill us if they do. So understand that. The left, they base this entire deal on the assumption that Iran can't be trusted, that Iran is a bad actor. And it's obvious because Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism responsible for the deaths of 1,000 or so Americans. This is really important to note, okay? The left doesn't trust them. The left doesn't trust Iran, and neither do we. But the left thinks that they can trust Iran to conduct their own searches, first of all, on their nuclear material. They're the ones that are going to be doing the searches. They're going to search their own stuff and report back, we don't have any nuclear material. Also, they got all these side deals with the EAIU, I don't know, I've messed up that acronym. But the people who will be doing the searches, the international organizations that is going to be doing the searches. So all these additional side deals that we don't even know about because it's secret, we can't find out what they are. And in addition, they've got a 24-day period in which they can hide material. First of all, if we want to inspect something, we don't actually get to do it. It's this international organization that gets to inspect it. And then they get 24 days, essentially, to move all the material that they want to hide out of there. There's technology available that can make it possible for them to hide everything. So even if they are conducting weapons research and actually developing a nuclear bomb, we have to wait 24 days before we can go in and see. And there's technology available now that they can move all of that stuff, all that material, and hide every bit of what they're doing from us in the facilities that we inspect. And not to mention that we're only allowed to inspect certain facilities. So there's facilities that are entirely non-inspectable according to this deal. In addition, the deal makes sure that Iran has money now. They get billions of dollars now to spend on weapons. They're spending it on conventional weapons. They're buying from China and Russia. Now, they're making sure that if they develop a bomb, which they are going to develop a bomb, because we and the left agree that they're not to be trusted. They can't be trusted. And if they get the bomb, they'll use it. They're going to kill us. There's no such thing as a mutually assured destruction, which is what we had with the Soviet Union. When we were in the Cold War, it's a mutually assured destruction, this concept that if we send our nukes, they send their nukes, and we all die. We are all mutually destroyed. That's the word, mutually assured destruction. It's assured that we will all mutually be dead if we use these. So that is what we had in the Cold War. However, that is not what we have when we're dealing with Iran. Iran has claimed, first of all, that according to their belief system, that their imam will return when the world is on fire, and that their job is to hasten the return of the fifth imam, therefore to light the world on fire. There's no mutual assured destruction with these people. They will use a nuke if they get it. They will wipe Israel off the map, as they have said. They believe in chants like death to America, death to Israel. They will kill us. Listen to their words. They are extremists. We should not be aligning with them. They will kill us if they get the nuke. Even the left agrees. They will kill us if they get the nuke. Now, what we're really debating on now is how to prevent them from getting the nuke. Well, I would argue that preventing them from getting the nuke would not be a good idea to make sure that they had all the money that they need to buy conventional arms for the war that is to come. We will be at war with Iran soon. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. It will be, my guess, 10 years. And I'm horrible at guessing these things. I'm not a prophet. I'm not able to predict things. I just see the writing on the wall. Iran is building up their conventional weapons arsenal. They're buying surface-to-air missiles to prevent anybody from invading their country and bombing their country. We're not going to be able to defeat them in 10 years like we would be able to defeat them now, for example. In 10 years, they're going to have all this time that they've built up their infrastructure, their conventional weapons to prevent invasion, to keep people off of their back. It's going to be a lot harder for us or Israel to bomb their nuclear weapon sites. It's going to be a lot more difficult. They're going to spend this money to harden these facilities to withstand nuclear attack or conventional weapons attack. They're going to spend this money to make sure that they're not as susceptible. So I don't personally think that it's a good idea that we relieve the sanctions on them, to giving them all of this money to spend on that to make it more difficult. I think that if they keep down their current path, there really is no choice. Again, I equate this to you being armed in a dark alley. You have a firearm that is loaded in a dark alley, and you're there with a guy who's crazy, and he's saying that he was going to kill you, and on the ground between you and him is another loaded firearm. All right? I believe in the right to keep and bear arms just as much as anybody, but I also believe in the right to protect yourself. And that's the purpose of the right to bear arms. All right? I have a right to defend myself, and if you are in an alley with somebody who is saying that they're going to do harm to you and kill you, and they're in the process of walking towards the weapon that they're going to kill you with, and they're saying that they're going to kill you with, you have an absolute right to take that guy out and prevent him from getting the weapon. You have an absolute right to defend yourself against the violence that he's about to put onto you. And this is no different. Iran is telling us that they are going to kill us. They're going to kill our ally, Israel. Now, you can agree or disagree. I know there's people out there who listen to the show that don't think that Israel should be our ally and that we shouldn't be supporting them and that they're war criminals and all of that. I disagree. I completely disagree. I support Israel. And if you disagree with me, okay, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. And I'll tell you my point of view. You tell me yours. Maybe we'll meet in the middle. Maybe we'll agree to disagree. Who knows? I don't know. But the point is that they are currently our ally. And if we're going to support anybody in the Middle East, if we're going to be involved in the Middle East and we're concerned about stabilization over there, it would be nice. I would love to just forget about the Middle East. I'd love to just not worry. Let's just stick our heads in the sand and worry about here at home. The problem is we can't just do that. We are not in a bubble in America. We may have an ocean between us and them, but what they do there comes here, and it can affect us here at the homeland. And I'm not for war, but if we allow a mullah-ran country in Iran to get a hold of nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missile technology that they can send nuclear weapons here, even if they can't, if they can give those nuclear weapons, those warheads to terrorists and have them smuggled in across our southern border, we will have some real problems, people. These people are saying that they want to kill us. And it's not all Iranians. It's their leadership. Their leadership, the mullahs, are extremists who want to kill us and our allies. We have to do something, and I can guarantee you, we either do something preemptively, or we are in another Pearl Harbor scenario, another 9/11 scenario where we're flung into it. And I can see that happening because, honestly, nobody wants to go to war in the Middle East again. Myself included. I would love to forget about that place. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to fight them. I don't want to do these things because it sucks. And we lose people. Our American men and women will die and have died fighting in this place that none of us particularly care for. I don't plan on going to the Middle East because it's a very turbulent area. It's a violent area. Look, I don't care what they do. I wish they could just live their lives and leave us alone, and vice versa. I wish we could all do that and live hunky-dory and all this, but when people are threatening violence upon you, you have to react. Either before the violence happens or after it happens. I mean, it's just the truth. But the left, they think that this deal will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and they don't trust Iran with a nuclear weapon. They say so themselves. They think that if Iran gets it, they'll use it, which they will. And yet they trust them to conduct their own inspections and trust them that within a 24-day time period that they're not going to move any nuclear material, let alone just use their weapons programs in other facilities that are not allowed to be inspected. They trust them to do all these things, and it's okay to trust somebody, but you should be able to verify. As Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. We need to make sure that our enemies are not conspiring against us, and we need to make sure that these people who obviously, as both sides of the aisle admit, cannot be trusted with nuclear weapons because of what they say and what they'll do, we need to verify that they're not pursuing a nuclear weapons program. And I think it's funny because if we talk about what the Iranians also say, they say on one side of their mouth that they want nuclear weapons programs, or I'm sorry, they want nuclear programs for energy. That's all they want it for, is energy, one side. And on the other side, they say they're going to bomb us and kill us all and all of that. But the left, it surprises me that they would support a general weapons, or I'm sorry, a nuclear program, a nuclear energy program, in Iran, because they hate nuclear energy here in our country. You would think that they would be, screaming from the rooftops that, oh, nuclear energy is evil and bad. They hate it here in America, and coal. And you would think that they would be opposing any nuclear energy in Iran because they don't support it. They don't agree with it. However, in this case, they're silent. Again, not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. You will not be held guiltless, unaccountable. We all have to get out there, get on the move, go do something. And there's so many different avenues that you can go about that. There's so many different things that you can do to stand up for liberty. There's so much that you can do here at home. But just know that abroad we've got some real problems. And I adamantly believe that we're going to see some major crises coming in the future here. I adamantly believe that the government is going to grow bigger and bigger, and I don't believe that we're superior human beings than other people around the world. I don't believe that we are immune to corruption. I don't believe that we're immune to tyranny. And we fought it back once. I hope we can do it again. But I see the wolves circling. There's so many problems, and most of them are created from big government, interference in the free market, and in our daily lives. But anyway, that's today's show. I hope it didn't bum you guys out too much. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And first of all, I just want to say thank you guys. MacPack, I say this every week, and I hope you feel the sincerity when I say that I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. You guys are the reason why I do this show. And I feel inspired, and I get hope every time I talk to you guys on the air, and I have interactions with you guys on Facebook and Twitter. You guys are the tip of the spear. You guys are what we need in this country. We need people who are doing things. We need people who are out there getting on the move, trying to inspire others, trying to be a beacon of light in this darkness. And I think that the darkness is coming. I think that there's going to be a lot of problems in the future. And, it's going to take each and every one of us that are willing to speak up and stand up against it and say, no, I'm not gonna sit back and just do nothing. So, again, thank you. You guys are awesome. Tip of the spear. So don't forget to check us out on our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow and Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. I really do appreciate that. And also, guys, I just want to give you a heads up. We are also on iTunes. So you can feel free to follow us there. You can write us a review. That would help us out significantly. If you follow us on Spreaker, that helps us out a big deal as well. So I greatly appreciate that. And again, thank you so much, guys. As always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.